I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel pretty enough. And a lot of this stemmed from not having my father in my life. I didn't feel smart enough because once I got to third grade, I was accepted into this gifted program. And I'll never forget it. I was 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old, being bused to a different school with children who looked totally different than me. And I could tell as early as 8 or 9 that they came from a very different socioeconomic background. I could just tell from school supplies, the day we brought school supplies in. And they had all name brand things, and mine were store-bought brands. And I could tell from how they talked, how they walked, how they ate, how they spoke. Everything about me was totally different. And from probably third grade on to middle school, I was one of few African Americans in what we called a gifted and talented or advanced or honors program back, when I was in school in Louisiana. That really threw me because I was one of the smartest from where I came from. But then I get thrust into this new environment. These people are much more advanced, at least in my mind. That was, those were things I really had to get over. That was the excuse. I'm not good enough.
If you're new to my channel, welcome. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiration and tips to become a more resilient and confident leader of others or even just your own life. Hey everybody, I'm back with another episode of So What Success Stories. And today I'm so excited to be talking to my friend, my big sister, my confidant, a whole lot of things. And this is Sylvia Monique Williams. And I met Monique, I think it was in 2007 when I first started working at FedEx. I told a friend of ours, Pastor Ricky Floyd, a lot of us know him, that I was going to be working at FedEx. And he said, you need to meet Monique. And I was like, okay. And so I looked her up. We went to lunch and the rest is history. We have been close friends ever since then. And actually, when I met Monique, I felt like I met the older version of myself. And only by older, I only mean a few years older. Of myself and everything that I am and everything that I want to be. And this is my friend Monique. Monique is a corporate attorney at a Fortune 500 company. She is super impressive and super humble, but she is a corporate attorney. And then she is also a co-founder of the Edge Performance Group, which she founded with her husband. And so we're going to get into this incredible story. Monique, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for that intro. We have definitely been tight ever since we met, so I'm excited to be on here as well. So as Summer mentioned, I am Monique. It's hard to believe I've been practicing law for 25 years. I just can't even believe it.
Time goes out so fast.
Yeah. But I'll share a little bit more about, in my mind, I feel like we all need to have multiple streams of income. I teach that. And so part of what my husband and I do with our coaching business is both a professional development and career development coaching business. He's a former NFL player, now collegiate football coach, and he is my daily inspiration for all things higher and really inspiring you to press forward. And so he's sort of my personal coach, but we coach others together, both in small groups and individual as well. And on the front of having multiple income streams, I'm also a real estate investor. So he and I also invest in real estate. And so I just feel like that is so important. We have a family that we're blending very well together, which that'll probably be something that we will share, because I know that for many people that can be an obstacle, especially in family and marriage relationships. But he and I also have the added, I won't call it a pressure, but the added obstacle, if you will. We don't see it that way. We see it as a blessing, but that he and I, for a part of the year, we spend a significant amount of time apart in two different places.
So we'll get into all of that. Let's get into all of that.
Too. Yeah.
So let's get into that. So in this program, I have what I call the So What Success system. And it's my belief that anyone, if they can learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices, they can have So What Success. And that is success no matter what you experience in life. And Monique, you and I have had some deep, powerful personal conversations about Amy and probably everything.
Yes.
And so I know you are so a success woman that and I'm hoping that you're gonna give the people all the stuff.
Yeah.
Because you could have been ruled out a long time ago. You statistically would not have achieved all the amazing things that you've achieved. But it is because you are so a success woman. So first, go back to what you were saying about obstacles. Talk about some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you are today and how you've done it.
Yeah. So growing up, I was raised by a 15-year-old mother, no dad at the time. Grew up with my grandparents. And so that was probably one of the first biggest obstacles. Also, I looked around my family and I didn't see anyone who was living the life that I, desired internally. And that was huge because in going to school and going to college later on, I realized that I started probably 5 steps behind people who were of the same age that I was and who had the same type of dreams, just because I did not have anyone in my family, and quite honestly, anyone that I could see who looked like me or had any desire close to what I wanted. That was a major, major obstacle, because I felt like, other than just having, and I did have a good, family. My grandparents were great to my mom. She was 15, but she did the best she could. So I had a good start in life as it relates to that. But from a perspective of having knowledge with respect to success and performing well, I didn't feel like I had that. And so when you think about an obstacle, I think about, something that is placed or that you're born with that is like a hindrance to you getting where you want. That was one of the big ones. Not having my dad in my life, that was a major one as well. And I've also went through a divorce, which for a lot of people would have taken them down. And, I was always a planner growing up. I always had a 5 or 10-year plan. I'm going to do this. And then after I achieve that goal, I'm going to do this. I always had a 5, 10-year plan. And so that really kind of threw me because my life was planned out. So when you talk about obstacles, that was certainly another big one.
So talk about, because I went through a lot of that with
Yeah.
you. Of course, not the growing up. I didn't have the pleasure of meeting you until you were grown and successful at that point. But talk about how you overcame some of those obstacles of growing up and dreaming, having these dreams, and not having examples of people who had done it or had shown you how to do it. And then also talk about dealing with that obstacle of divorce and overcoming divorce, because you're exactly right. And I thank God for you because you helped me during that time in my life. But talk about how you overcame some of those obstacles.
Yeah. So let me first talk about the dad situation. I realized growing up that was, as much as I tried to hide it or tried to fill that void with so many other things, it was a big part of my life that I missed. And unfortunately for me, it developed into like a workaholic type of personality. And I felt like, okay, I'm going to show him or others that even though I don't have him in my life, I'm going to, he's going to regret the day that he meets me and he sees that I'm successful. That wasn't necessarily the most healthy way to approach that. That's all I knew as a young child. And so what I did, I just remember starting to pray very early in life. Pray and visualize. And that's probably one of the key things that I would say to our listeners is, it doesn't matter where you start. It really does. This sounds cliche. It really only matters where you end up. And so no matter how you got there, you still can. And so one of the first things you've got to do is understand where it is you want to go and then immerse yourself in that environment. So for me, even as early as 8 or 9 years old, I can remember going in my grandmother's yard, the backyard, and I would just lay down on my back and I would visualize. I'd close my eyes and visualize what I wanted to be and where I wanted to go in life. And I remember wanting to help people. So I knew I wanted to practice law. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with it. And so I remember just laying on the ground, closing my eyes and just visualize. I could just see myself, at the time it was in a courtroom because that's all I knew about the law, even though that's not what I do today. And I just would visualize myself as a grown-up being a lawyer. And I would literally do that probably 3 to 4 times a week. It was just something that I knew I wanted to do. And I remember a little cousin of mine he would say, it's like you're from here, but you're not from here. Because I could literally take myself and put myself in another place. I felt like that was so powerful for me from a visualization. And it helped me to internalize what it was I really felt like was on the inside of me.
That is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is powerful. I mean, that's very powerful. And I hope everybody will take a minute to digest it because it's something that I've done too. I don't remember doing it that young.
Yeah.
But at the same time, seeing yourself out of a situation or in the situation that you desire.
Yeah.
Talk about the divorce and overcoming that
Yeah.
obstacle a little
Yeah.
bit.
So the biggest thing for me, like I said, I'm a planner. I've always been a planner, very, type A, your typical, probably what people would think of as someone who has a law degree. And it shook me only because it was what I had planned my entire life. Like, by this age, I'll be a lawyer. By this age, I'll be married. By this age, I'll have children. By this age, I'll have another one. And that's exactly what I did. And the lesson that I learned in that is to be flexible, to be open. You can't control everything. And you certainly can't control everybody.
It's hard, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Everything. Yeah.
There's probably a lot of lesson just in what I just said.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I had to go back to God and say, look, this is what I felt like we've been working on my entire life. And I had to just sit with, that was probably one of the biggest things that I felt like those were goals of mine. And that was one that I just didn't quite make. And it shook me because I realized in my mind, I felt like my whole life, in my adult life, and I'm not knocking anyone I'm 50 now, but even at 30, I realized that I'm a wife. That's who I am at the core of me. And I knew that in my adult life, I would not spend it being somebody's girlfriend, not for a long time anyway. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying my personal mission, my personal mandate for my life is that I know that I'm a wife. I'm a nurturer. I'm a mother. I'm someone who helps to rear children. Family is very important to me. So I knew that that was where I was supposed to be. It just didn't happen then. And so I had to get over it. I had to say, so what? I literally had to say, so what? And I thought to myself, maybe I'm not meant for this. But I remember one day praying and I woke up and it was like the Lord had cleared my heart and my vision of all things that were negative toward marriage. And I remember getting up just this one random morning. I called a friend of mine. And I said, you know what? I feel like I'm ready to love again. But this time, I want to be flexible. I want to be open. And I don't want to just have a list where I can check these things off like I would do everything else in my life. But I did have a vision of what I wanted. I had a vision of what, would be appealing to me physically, spiritually, financially, and emotionally. And I did write those. I made a vision statement for the man that I wanted in my life. And God blessed me with that and more, actually. So I'm living a blessed life with a husband who is, you've met him, you know exactly, how he is and who he is, very intentional toward me and toward our family and toward God, which I love. I needed someone who would match and exceed my energy in every area. And you know him. So he is exactly that.
Monique, you know what always comes to my mind, and then we'll get to the next question and then we can talk about it even more in the other questions. But what immediately comes to my mind is the day that I talked to you and you sounded like a schoolgirl.
Yeah.
Who am I talking to?
Yes.
Who am I talking to? And that's what this man that you manifested brought to your life. And it made me so happy for you after going through what I had gone through in my own relationship and then seeing you go through what you went through in terms of the divorce, to see that happiness in you that made you go. And this is good. I think this is powerful for a lot of women who might watch this, who are like, I think you and I are, like very strong, pretty independent women who want and desire love in a relationship, but don't necessarily need a man, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was really beautiful for me to see that happiness come into your life. And then when I did get to know him and to see like, oh, okay, yeah, he is perfect for her. Exactly perfect. And so I love how you were able to overcome that obstacle, but how it took a lot of intentionality for you to even be able to receive that. So let's go to the next question and we can talk about it a little bit more, because I think all these answers intertwine. So the next part of the Soul Success System is learning how to eliminate excuses. Mm-hmm. So we all have obstacles, those that we are born into, some that we create ourselves, and some that are, just happen in life. but we can also make excuses and not overcome those obstacles. Talk about some of the excuses that you had to eliminate to move forward and to get through some of those obstacles that you've experienced.
Yeah. So I talked to one of them earlier, which is looking around, I didn't have any preparation. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel pretty enough. And a lot of this stemmed from not having my father in my life. I didn't feel smart enough because once I got to third grade, I was accepted into this gifted program. And I'll never forget it. I was 8 or 9 years old, being bused to a different school with children who looked totally different than me. And I could tell as early as 8 or 9 that they came from a very different socioeconomic background. I could just tell from school supplies, the day we brought school supplies in. And they had all name brand things, and mine were store-bought brands. And I could tell from how they talked, how they walked, how they ate, how they spoke. Everything about me was totally different. And from probably third grade on to middle school, I was one of few African Americans in what we called a gifted and talented or advanced or honors program back, when I was in school in Louisiana. That really threw me because I was one of the smartest from where I came from. But then I get thrust into this new environment. These people are much more advanced, at least in my mind. That was, those were things I really had to get over. That was the excuse. I'm not good enough. So every day I had to work to show myself I am good enough. I am good enough. And then that sort of is the second lesson that I would like to share is I didn't know it then, but I was reciting affirmations to myself. I'm like, you can do this. You can do this. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old. And even now I still, because as you promote higher and higher, those, seeds of doubt will still come up. I don't care as a 50-year-old, often those seeds of doubt come, and I know now how to deal with them. But I was just learning that as an elementary school student.
I think that's so powerful, Monique, because that happens every day, right? And so you're talking about experiencing that as a young girl, but I speak in colleges and universities a lot, as you know, and I think about all the young people who come from an environment and they're doing really well and they're top of their class in high school, and then they go to college and it's a whole new world, and they're experiencing exactly what you just talked about, and I think about the number that quit, although they were at the top of their class and they were intelligent or are intelligent, but they get thrust into a new environment that they can't handle. Can you talk a little bit more about, you talked a little bit about how you dealt with it, but just because I know you are so wise and experienced so much, just any more advice that you would give to someone? And I gave the college situation, but you and I both have a corporate background too. And lots of different situations where that imposter creeps in and you got to fight it. So talk about that. Any other advice you would give on dealing with that?
Yeah. So first thing I would say is really understanding your purpose in life. I think that is so important to really search out why you were born. That's number one. Number one, we spend a lot of time doing things and checking lists and doing tasks, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're not doing the things and checking off the tasks that you were designed to do, you'll never really find the true definition of what it means to be successful for your life. So that's one of the first things. Secondly, because I felt like I didn't naturally have in my family circle and my family friend circle the tools, the toolkit, and the people and the connections that I needed, I learned early on that I needed to extend myself and reach out and ask for mentorship. Probably the biggest and most important step ever in my life. I learned the importance of mentorship so very early, and that has been phenomenal. I mean, it's literally changed my life. And I mentor young adults today because what that did for me literally transformed my life. Professionally, I found mentors in the workplace from the moment I started working. I remember at a law firm, I had zeroed in on this one particular attorney who didn't do the kind of law that I did, but he was so passionate about his clients and passionate about the practice of law. And I thought, I need to know him and I need to glean from him what is on the inside of him. But he was one that not a lot of people wanted to work with. They thought that he was difficult to be around, but he was exactly the person I felt like I needed in my life. And I remember going to him, and I was probably 23, 24, so fearful on the inside, but I knew that he had something I needed. So I remember knocking on his door and I asked the question. I said, "Would you be willing to mentor me?" And this is what he said. He goes, "I've never mentored anyone in my life. I don't even know where I would begin to mentor you." And I said, "Don't worry, I'll teach you how to mentor me."
That's my
And
friend.
to this day, he and I talk often. And that started him on a path of mentoring others. But it was priceless for him, but it was needful for me. And so one of the biggest things I would say is to humble yourself and realize no matter how smart, no matter what degrees I had, I realized I had some gaps and I needed some other people to help me. Now, the other thing that was important to me, and I know that you do this too, is I found people who had what I didn't, and I latched on to them. And so as a young person, probably 15, 16 years old, I realized that I was drawn to friends who were usually older than me. And they definitely probably had more, materially and from a wisdom standpoint than I had. But that was one of the strategies I used to fill the gaps of the holes that I had in my life. And I still do that today.
That's wise. That is so wise, and learning how to use your resources. So
Mhm.
hopefully people will take that, because I know, just like you expressed, that can change the whole game. That can change everything about your life. Well, the third part of the SOA success system is calculated choices.
Mhm.
Calculating choices. Talk about some of the calculated choices. And I know you've made a lot of calculated choices that you've had to make along your journey.
Yeah. So in college, I realized leaving high school, I said to myself, either I'm going to work hard these 4 to 7 years and be able to play like I want to later in life, or I can play these 4 to 7 years and then work how I don't want to have to work the rest of my life. And so I decided that I would really stretch myself, in my young adult life so that I could live the life that I really wanted to post, college. And so that was probably one of the first calculated choices that I made. The other one is you can't see my shirt here, but it says discipline, discipline, discipline. And that is my mantra for my life and for my kids and my husband and I. We talk about that all the time. For him, it's being persistent and persevering. And so I guess one of the biggest calculated choices that I've made in life is just to stay the course. That is the biggest strategy. And the thing about staying the course is when I make up my mind, and this is not being conceited or this is not thinking more highly of myself, but if I had a superpower that I could share with you, it is when I say I'm going to do something, it's going to get done. No ifs, ands, or buts. I don't care what happens, who says what obstacles come my way. If I have allowed it to leave my mouth, it will manifest. Now, it may not happen when I say, but I know that it will happen. So if I thought maybe it would take 2 years and it took 10, it doesn't matter. It just means there were 8 more years of preparation. Apparently, I wasn't ready for. But you better believe in that 10th year, it's going to manifest. And so the lesson to that is what an obstacle is merely something that hinders your progress or it's designed to stop you. So don't get mad at an obstacle. It's designed to do just what it's designed to do, but you're designed to overcome. So if you understand that, the only way, and this is cliche, I realize that the only way that you don't win is you quit. Truly. And so I have seen, and I've had some goals where I had some friends, we were all going along the same path. They got there in 1/3 the time that I did. And all that simply meant, it didn't mean that they were better than me, didn't mean they were more equipped than me. It just meant that as it related to that goal, all their ducks were in a row for what they needed to maintain that and sustain that. For me, I needed a little bit more pruning. I needed a little bit more preparing, but it doesn't make my success any less successful than theirs because it took me a little longer.
I think that was powerful, Monique, and I hear so much in that, and I know that's true of you.
Yeah.
I like to think that it's true with me too, that if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I got to get back on it and being more deliberate about that. But I know that it's true of you. And that's why when I met you all those years ago, And you've definitely been consistent about it. Like, no, that's just who you are. But the other beautiful thing about you is that, because you're not even allowing or even talking about really the level of your accolades and your achievement. That's okay. But I want the people watching this to know that on everything that you talked about in every aspect of your life, you are a high achiever. You have achieved an extreme amount of success. But you are such a humble and beautiful person. And that makes me love you even more. Love you even more. And I hope that everybody receives every nugget of everything that you're saying in this. So, Monique, you have talked about how you've overcome obstacles, eliminated excuses, and calculated choices so that you could be a success woman, and you are definitely that. But what is your personal definition of success?
Yes. So I mentioned a little bit of that earlier, but success to me means I'm living the life God designed me for. And I do believe that we should have success in every single area of our lives. And so I think about a 5-point strategy with my life. I'm thinking faith. So I need to be successful in my faith. Family, I need to be successful as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, but I also need to have time for myself. So I don't want to be giving to everyone else and not pouring back into myself. Finances, I believe that we should all be financially free and stable. Fitness, oftentimes when we think about success, especially for people who are driving towards goals, whether it be personal goals or career goals, unfortunately, oftentimes what gets lost or left out is their health and wellness. You've got to have focus on that too. And then fifth, if you're not having any fun, if you're not a joy to be around, then all the others really fall by the wayside. So for me, those are the 5 F's of life. For me is I've got to be successful in all things.
And I'm
And
listening.
often, can I tell you this? Because often people will say
Please.
you can't have your cake and eat it too. You most certainly can.
And
You
so,
can.
as you're saying that, Monique, I promise just basically what I was about to say is I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm listening to your 5, and I'm like, she on point,
Yeah.
faith, you on point. Oh my God, yeah, she definitely on point, fitness, like all those things. Like, yes, 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 yes. And you are proof, you are evidence that you can have all of those things and you can be all those things. But it's because of all the things that you said throughout this interview that you're able to do that. One last question for you. What is one last piece of advice? You've given a lot already, but what's one last piece of advice you would give to someone who wants to be successful, however they define success, but they experience obstacles? What would you say?
Be ready for success when it shows up. If you are hoping and you're planning for success, understand that you are saying to yourself, I'm signing up to go through the process, the pruning, the perfecting, the preparation, whatever is needed in you, because it's more than just getting to the destination. There is a reason why. Now, again, if your plans are connected to your purpose, there is a reason why God would allow you to meet, this point of success. It's not just haphazard. It is not just because you want it. It's because there is purpose in that. But understand, there is a process. So we were talking about me hitting certain goals. The reason why it's important for me to be willing to be open to being pruned and perfected is because it's going to take the person that is pruned and perfected, that is the person that is going to take to make the place of success where I'm headed and sustain it and grow it. So what do I mean? If I'm a 1-level person, but God needs me to be a level 10 person, and he's waiting for me to be a level 10 to get to success, but I'm unwilling to go through that process to go from level 1 to level 10, that means I'm not ready. I'm not ready. So he can give me level 10 success today. I wouldn't know how to keep it. I wouldn't know how to tend to it. I wouldn't know how to grow it. That's not a witness. So I've got to be willing to, level up and go through the pain of success. And so that's probably the last thing I want to share. Often people want it. And this is what I say. Most people have the appetite for success, but they don't have the stomach for it. They have the appetite. They want it. but they don't have the stomach. Success is not often pretty. Success is going to take away from your life. Success is going to require you to do some things you just simply don't want to do, which is why a lot of people don't get here. It's not that you can't. You have to be willing to go through the ugly parts of success, the uncomfortable parts of success, those places where you doubt yourself, those places where you don't think that you're good enough, those places where you fear. Even the thought of success is scary to a lot of people, because once you get there, there is many things required of you to keep it and to grow it. And so what I would say is ask yourself and pray, God, give me the capacity for success in my life. And I promise you, when you do that, when you're open to being pruned and perfected, success will show up, but you got to be ready for it.
That was so good. I'm still taking it all in. And I was waiting on that P for pain. And then you came with it. I'm like, okay, yep. Well, my friends, I'm so glad we finally got to talk. Well, got to have this interview. We talk all the time. I'm so glad we were able to talk and you were able to share all that you are with the people who are watching this. I know you're going to touch a lot of people. You're going to bless a lot of people. And going to change a whole lot of lives. So I thank you for your time today with this interview. And more importantly, I thank you for being my friend, my big sister, my role model. I love you, girl.
I love you too. Thank you so much for having me.
If you're new to my channel, welcome. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiration and tips to become a more resilient and confident leader of others or even just your own life.